who came here and gave humanity the violet flame. I say to you, it's true. Ooh, ooh, ah, ooh. I realized I need to clear off the mirror to make sure that we get clear, because right now it was not very clear. Now it is. Hello. And so now that we're here, we'll read Saint Germain. Oh no, come me. And also I'll say that I'm going to edit the summit from today. Not much, I'll just look over it before I post it and say it was worth it. I'm glad I carried on when I wasn't sure what would happen. And then you'll get to actually see what we did when we gathered in numbers is what we are doing on 3 platforms right now. We're on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube too, so if I'm looking off, that's why. This is Saint Germain. I'm going to stop singing so that those of you who do not resonate with that vibe or sound and my way of doing it don't get put off, and instead actually stick around for the gift that Saint Germain gave in explaining alchemy to us who can use it to actually wield our wands more favorably for ourselves, understanding that is what the sword is, sacred word, blazed on fire. It is time for us to read chapter 7, Methods of Transfer. I'm going to jump right into it tonight because I want to get through this first pillar, and the Crucible of Being is in quite a few pages, but wouldn't it be amazing if we could get there before the mystical origins of the United States of America, which is very important for the world to hear, including the Great Seal, which I've been learning more about from my conversations with Stephen Martin, who has been joining us with the summits that we've been doing on Thursdays with the Lawfully Organized Summits at 4 p.m. Eastern. So next week we'll have another, and if you tuned in now, I would love for you to be able to join in for that. But we're going to read chapter 7 now and read as much as we can in the hour that we have together. So buckle up, my friends. I'm going to have a swig of my coffee. Interestingly, on Tuesday, actually, during the Mystic Music Summit, my lamp actually fell over at a particular point, which is poignant, and Michael Seekers and I will talk about it in a subsequent video, but it was a charged moment, and it was very interesting because my love, hope, and joy lamp literally smashed. It fell off of there, and the light is still working, so that's cool, but the lamp itself is screwed. So that's unfortunate, but here we are. So anyway, methods of transfer, my friends. Light is the alchemical key. The words "let there be light" are the first fiat of the creation and the first step in proper precipitation. When man, who himself is a manifestation of God, desires to emulate the Supreme Father and precipitate, as a true son of light should learn to do, he ought to follow those methods used by the Supreme Intelligence if consistent and worthy results are to be anticipated. By examining the obvious methods of the Creator and by observing nature, you can deduce much of value if you should school yourself to think independently. For it is necessary to bypass mere human syllogisms and to penetrate the limitless consciousness of God, who is the great master alchemist, in order to go and do likewise, ever beholding your services as good. When you have determined within yourself to experiment with the art of precipitation, first create a mind blueprint of the object you wish to produce. This should incorporate definite size, proportion, substance, density, color, and quality in detailed picture form. When the visualization of the blueprint within your mind is complete, it ought to be immediately sealed. This is a vital step in its speedy and effective release into the world of matter form. Do not misunderstand this step and think that by sealing your plan you are closing the door to the improvement of its design. Such is not the case, for improvements can be made in subsequent models. But unless you release the blueprint to the elementals and builders of form as a finished work, they cannot properly bring it into manifestation. The words "it is finished" are therefore the second fiat of creation following "let there be light." Now that you have created a thought matrix and sealed it against the intrusion of impinging mind radiation from others, set up either consciously, in some cases through jealousy or ego, or unconsciously by the mass mind's collective resistance to progress, you must observe the third rule to protect your creative intent and tell no man. This too is a law of precipitation, one that allows you to circumvent concentrated beams of human thought and feeling patterns, which can be most disturbing to a successful alchemical experiment unless certain safeguards are activated. Avoid, then, the dissipation of energy by the intrusion of a multiplicity of minds, except where two or more individuals are specifically cooperating in joint precipitation. Those who are of a scientific nature and are familiar with Coulomb scattering and Rutherford's law will understand how thought energy, as waves scattering other waves, as if composed of minute particles, can set up a penetration of great enough intensity to break down the field of magnetic energy, focusing the specific pattern of the creative matrix. Each student should recognize the geometric figures such as the square, the triangle, the circle, the ellipse, and the parallelogram are employed almost universally in creating within the macrocosmic as well as the microcosmic three-dimensional world. Although higher forms of creativity are found in the mathematical world of algebra, calculus, and trigonometry, the highest symbology of all known to us at inner spiritual levels is the science of engrammic rhythms. This study deals with the control and release of energy, with engrams as terms we use to refer to the causative key behind the effects observed by worldly scientists and called by them engrams, with the use of mantras, with the storing of Fahatic energy, and with safeguards activating principles of demarcation between the evolutions of the human consciousness in the planes of matter and the world of perfect divine order that exists in the planes of spirit. When contemplating this science, one should bear in mind that even the infinite omnipresent consciousness of God, as it extends itself into the realm of the material creation, moves through the gamut of creative expression from simple patterns to those of increasing complexity. The student of alchemy should consider the memory, when employed as the instrument of the higher mind, as an invaluable adjunct to his experiment. For the processes of the human memory are remarkable indeed, and when these are coordinated with the mental body, superlative action is always forthcoming. Thus, there are a number of individuals who can memorize and execute an entire symphony without noticeable flaw. Thus, there are a number of individuals who can memorize and execute an entire symphony without noticeable flaw. Mathematicians, too, demonstrate marvelous faculties of mental control in their calculations, which approximate infinite precision. Let each student of alchemy then recognize that he has within himself a higher mind that is capable of holding patterns of infinite dimensions. This mind functions independently of the outer mind without human restriction of any kind. Hence, as the vehicle of the higher mind, a purified memory body, feeding as it does the impressions of that mind to the outer mind, is indispensable to the alchemist. Let the sincere student who would ponder and practice methods of mind and memory control, which are the methods of God himself, acquire the habit of consciously giving to this blessed higher mind, or Christ self, the responsibility for designing and perfecting the embryonic ideas and patterns of his creation. For many of these patterns, which at first appeared to be consciously conceived by the alchemist, frequently have their origin within this higher portion of the blessed self. Remember, 24 hours of each day, your higher mind is active in expanded dimensions. This blessed comforter, unknown and unexperienced by you outwardly, waits to be called into action and does function free of ordinary space-time limitations. Employ your higher mind, then, both as your apprentice and as your teacher, for the Holy Spirit of truth moving therein can lead you into all truth. I would like to call to the attention of the students that if they so desire, they can immeasurably assist themselves in the alchemical arts through outside reading. Care must be exercised in this, however, so that the byways of technology and scientific theory do not serve to divert the mighty flow of alchemy as the greatest science into byways of materialism where the ends are said to justify the means. I realize full well that many related subjects would not only be boring, but also beyond the comprehension of some of our students. Desiring not to limit the masses of humankind from having the blessings of alchemy, I have deliberately stated many of these points in such a way as to make them easily understood. Let no one feel, however, that all knowledge can be reached through a single approach or without effort and study. I suggest for those wishing more technical information to augment the study that they study wave propagation, the mechanics of the quantum theory, elementary and advanced chemistry, and physics, seismology, astronomy, geology, and related subjects. These subjects, together with the courses in the humanities, the world's religions, and the Shakespearean plays, will be of immense value as you are guided from within and also by your personal tastes. Let none feel that the pursuit of such extracurricular subjects is absolutely necessary or the mandate of the masters, for the teachings of greatest importance are included herein, albeit in some cases between the lines. Let God guide, and to those who do not recognize his reigns, I say, fortune is as fortune does. I am a bit hopeful that material science will not look too much askance on the control of matter by the power of the mind and spirit. I doubt that religion could justly deny the so-called miracles which demonstrate, if they are to be believed, that individuals who have lived upon earth have been able to practice transmutation, which is simply changing one form into another, such as water into wine, amplification and multiplication of the atomic and molecular substance, such as multiplying the loaves and fishes, and precipitation of the elements, such as calling down fire from heaven. Equally wondrous feats performed by masters unascended and ascended indicate a most exact science of control over matter and energy. I myself have never questioned the truth of these matters, simply because I have always retained in humility my faith in the power of good to endure forever. Moreover, I am active in demonstrating the laws of alchemy, which make of the entire process of the control of matter and energy an everyday affair. I realize that the uninitiated, or those who have never seen these so-called miracles for themselves, may easily question their authenticity. Alchemists of God, I do not now ask you to believe alone. I ask you to begin in some measure to demonstrate these truths for yourself. A few students of higher law have been able to externalize successfully one or more visible objects directly from the universal, such as a rose, a precious stone, or a cup of liquid essence, quickening both mind and body. Naturally, we are anxious to see people achieve the power of producing anything and everything directly from the universal. Yet such secrets can hardly be written down or spelled out in form, for we cannot upset the present economic balance, the economic system, until greater justice is established by mankind on earth. But neither can these secrets be justifiably concealed from the worthy. Hence we have included marvelous keys in this total course, which, to the eyes of the faithful, or those who would strive to become so, will open many a door of progress. Every ascended master has these powers to precipitate at will, and therefore he never lacks for any good thing. Unascended mankind ask themselves this question: how long will you spend your energy struggling to eke out a bare existence from nature's cupboard, which to some seems bare indeed, when all your needs can be met by mastering the cosmic laws which Christ Jesus and other great teachers have demonstrated by their own lives in the past? The use of the term light in alchemy includes light in its known visible aspects as well as in its invisible characteristics, some of which are yet unknown to physical science. When I produced rare gems and precious stones by means of alchemy, the methods I used could not have been easily applied by the average person who had not, by disciplined faith and meditative quietude, established the necessary mind control. These methods are known to every initiate, and only an initiate could be so tempted of the dark forces as Jesus was, who, aware of his alchemical power, rebuked the temptation to use alchemy during the period of the testing of his faith. Rather than relieve physical discomfort by commanding these stones be made bread, as he might have done, he rendered his allegiance to the supreme God presence and the Word of God and acknowledged these as far more important than the demands of his physical body. This enabled him to pass this test and to prepare for the disciplines which gave him his victory on the cross and in the tomb, and he carried him upward from Bethany's hill into the arms of God. However, the alchemy of spiritual progress seems less important to many who prefer the more spectacular modes of psychic phenomena to the attainment of those transmutative changes which will make them godlike. Little do men dream that the assurance, all these things shall be added unto you, includes the power of control over wind and wave, of substance and energy, once man has made the kingdom of God his first and most important objective. Yet balance is needed, and I am delighted once again to tell the students that the use of alchemy to work change in the physical octave is not inordinate in the least if it is properly used. The methods of alchemy can be simply stated and easily absorbed, but its precepts require the practice of a master artist. Nevertheless, results can come forth in diverse ways if the student will at least begin and try. There are many methods of precipitation, but here I shall outline just one of them in part. First, design a mental matrix of the desired object, then determine where you wish it to manifest. If you know the material substance of which it is composed, memorize its atomic pattern. If not, call to the divine intelligence within your higher mind to register the pattern for you from the universal intelligence and impress it upon your memory body and your mind. Recognize that light is an energy substance universally manifesting on earth, thanks to the sun center of being, the focal point of the Christ in the solar system. Call for light to take on the atomic pattern you are holding, to coalesce around that pattern, and then to densify into form. Call for the multiplication of this atomic structure until molecules of substance begin to fill the void occupying the space in which you desire the object to appear. When the total outline is filled with the vibratory action of the fourth dimensional substance representing the desired manifestation, ask for the full lowering of the atomic density into three-dimensional form and substance within the pattern established by the matrix of your mind, and then await results. Do not be tense if your manifestation is not immediate, or if after a reasonable length of time it appears that the results are not forthcoming. Remember, blessed ones, despair destroys the very faith upon which your experiment is built, for faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, and you must hold your faith as you hold the gossamer veil composing the mental image. If you have spent years in the grips of human emotions, absorbing the discord of the mass consciousness and the doubts and fears by humankind, these records must be consumed by alchemical fires to make way for these noble ideas and forms which you would image forth. Whoa, sorry. That was a really long sentence. If you have spent years in the grips of human emotions, absorbing the discord of the mass consciousness and the doubts and fears by humankind, these records must be consumed by alchemical fires to make way for these nobler ideas and forms which you would image forth. To your new ideas, you must give your time and your energy. Thus you begin to weave a web of fruition dedicated to spirituality, to the spiritualization of the material consciousness, and to the materialization of heavenly concepts, right here on earth where the kingdom of God must come into manifestation. I would like to point out that the scanning method used in the projection of television pictures, whereby an electronic stream effect fluoresces on the screen and the electronic particles sweep in a horizontal linear pattern to create within a microsecond an eye picture, cannot be successfully used in alchemical precipitation, but is most suitable for the projection of mental pictures at a distance. In precipitation, a rapid expansion of the light rays in 3 dimensions must occur, and in the screen method, the optical image is on a flat, single-plane dimension. A study of cytology and embryology will provide the student with some understanding of how a single cell multiplies and reproduces. When you are dealing with instantaneous manifestation, the velocity and intensity of light must reach startling speed and power. It must be realized that the exercise of such control over matter by the mind is no ordinary process. While I do not say that ordinary people cannot master the technique of executing these laws, and that the most humble individual cannot be invested with or invest himself with such authority within the inalienable rights that God gives to man, I do not wish a sense of frustration to arise within those who may attempt to precipitate and then feel discouraged because they apparently fail. I say apparently because the law does not fail. In most cases, where direct precipitation does not occur, if the effort and the technique be pursued in full faith that the call compels the answer, an indirect precipitation will sooner or later be brought about, whereby through one hand or another the desired manifestation does take place. Remember, this is divine artistry from the highest of the highest type. It is also co-creation with God, and as such is best used by those whose purposes parallel the divine. Thus, when the will of man is aligned with the will of God, the light of God does not fail to precipitate that will in the fullness of time, space, and opportunity. I have devoted 6 lessons to this subject, dealing with practical methods for assisting the spiritual scientist in obtaining greater personal happiness each day through the merger of the person with the patterns of principle itself. Both inner and outer peace and a sense of personal well-being are required for the successful development of one's spiritual powers, albeit some individuals may thrive in the midst of conflict. I must admit that upon earth courageous leaders in many fields are needed to unfold and develop the type of society which could be considered to be designed by the gods. In addition to the alchemy of instantaneous precipitation, the alchemy of preparation is needed, whereby the use of one's energies and opportunities is planned in an intelligent manner so that life does not receive a hit and miss return on its investment of energy in an individual life stream. I am hopeful that my readers thus far have not been disappointed in the homely use I have made of their time and attention. I humbly submit that the rereading of this material may further enlighten you, each one, in the true depth of my perceptions, which are calculated to exalt those of various social and religious strata into areas of greater usefulness to themselves, to mankind, and to God. If, when the course is complete, I have in some measure accomplished that, or augmented its possibility, I shall be content. I just wanted to check out over on Facebook, but it's not showing up there. How are you tonight? I hope that everyone is doing well. You got paused out over on Instagram because it went to low battery. How's your battery? Are you keeping up with the energies and the fluctuations that are coming into your environment with everything going on? Are you keeping up with everything that is in your space right now and alchemizing? Because that's what we are working on tonight. Saint Germain on alchemy is what this episode is about. It's part 3 in the readings that I have done. So I am very glad to have the opportunity to share this with you. I'm going to get back to it. Some of you may desire my personal guidance as you attempt your first alchemical precipitation. I shall gladly assist all who will silently request my aid, providing the motive be right and the desired change beneficial to your life plan, and providing you exercise care and prayer in seeking that God's will always be done. Let me suggest then that you attempt as a first effort the precipitation of an amethyst in the form of a Maltese cross. You see, this would be most excellent, for I have personally used alchemy to make many experimental models, and I am most happy to add my momentum to your own. From the simple to the complex, from the dawn of the beginning to the use of light's ray to the noontide zenith of progress, let all move in the byways of life as in a caravan of faith. Let each would-be alchemist aim at the mark of achievement you build in the eternal day right now. I am dedicated to your success. Saint Germain. Chapter 8, Commanding Consciousness. Now we approach with reverent hush, with the awe of sacred awareness, at the great spiritual laws governing all outer manifestation. The purposes of God become more near to each one as they become more dear to him. Realize what folly it is to submit to the false tenets of any educational system. Yet it is equally foolish to deny the inherent truth in the tested precepts of academic knowledge. To know nature, know thyself, but master the art of sacred synthesis. Thereby the justice of truth shall serve to integrate within the field of knowing that inner relativity and cosmic measurement between nature and the self, whose precise mathematical action indicates that as God geometrizes, so man is able systematically to perceive and demonstrate a correlated understanding of the wondrous works of God's hands, minus the fallacious wizardry of the carnal mind. By stripping human thought and feeling vibrations from the creative grace enfolded within each atom of the creation, the whole substance of life gleams, purified by eternal hands. Now this is as it should be. The grossest error, the most intense suffering, all are caused by an erroneous approach to pure reason. Do you realize, blessed children of mankind, that few there be upon earth who would knowingly persist in wrongdoing were they convinced with certainty that they were so engaged? It is up to the master alchemists of the race, then, to serve God and man to the ultimate by removing every trace of malice and ignorance from the screen of the human consciousness, commencing with each one's own personal concepts. Knowing how tenderly the students of this course are hanging on my every word, I am also imbued with a sense of reverence for the service at hand. I cannot conceive of how we can do less than answer the calls made onto us in accordance with the great cosmic law. Even an ascended being in close contact with mankind can become almost possessed with a certain sense of urgency and a desire to cut the chains which hold any blessed soul in bondage. Yet it is only possible for us to point the way and give such specific guidance and service as the karmic board has prescribed. The injunction, man, know thyself, must be applied by you to the pure truth of being and not the human concepts of what that truth is. It is dangerous, however, to be critical of another or of his concepts, for only the individual can apprehend through the screen of his own being his world and the cosmos beyond. When you realize the meaning of interpreting life for yourself, you will see how utterly impossible it is for you to perform this for another, inasmuch as the average person cannot successfully enter the consciousness of another life stream, nor accurately assess his complete thought and feeling processes. This, by the grace of God, we are able to do, and the karmic board, in connection with the universally Christed selves of all mankind, is able to mediate. We often hesitate, unless mightily appealed to interfere in individual karma. Yet foolish, unascended mankind often rush in to decide how an individual ought to live or think. I trust the students of this activity will come more and more to realize how helpful they can be to one another by holding the immaculate concept for each one's life plan and then leaving the guidance to that one's higher self. Well, have I observed over the centuries how important is the service of ordered prayer? The daily offering of petitions has saved the lives of millions, expanded the lives of other millions, and blessed all life without limit. Prayer opens the door of God's intervention in human affairs. It provides an avenue whereby the ascended masters and cosmic beings who desire to serve the planet Earth and its evolution can walk within the folds of universal justice and render special assistance because they have been called upon to do so. For the law decrees that the heavenly host must be petitioned by some mankind. For the law decrees that the heavenly host must be petitioned by some among mankind, must be invited to intervene, before they are permitted to intercede on behalf of humanity. After all, would men retain their free will if heaven thwarted the attainment of every inordinate desire? Yet can those guardians of the race who perceive the error of mankind's actions fail to invoke, on behalf of their misguided brethren, assistance from the higher intelligence of God to cut life free from the crystallized effects of their erroneous concepts? To the alchemist, the value of prayer is manifold. In addition to the aforesaid benefits, it provides an impetus to enhance his values and further the goal of divine truth, while the mental mold is in the process of coming into physical manifestation. The call of beloved Jesus at the hour of his greatest testing, "Nevertheless will my will, but thine be done," teaches a more advanced lesson of alchemy. When spoken by the alchemist at the moment of the sealing of the matrix, this call ensures that the guiding forces of power, wisdom, and love will amend the precipitated pattern where necessary in order that the more perfect designs of the Creator may come forth in the world of form. This places the whole process of precipitation within the force field of eternal precipitations and provides man as a co-creator with God, with the added benefit of the assistance of the Almighty, as he forms and develops his own idea pattern of destiny in accordance with cosmic purpose. In my most recent offering, I hinted at the possibility of other minds interfering with the process of precipitation. And while I wish no one to become fearful of this eventuality, I do want each one to be alert to protect himself by guarded silence. Guarded action and guarded meditation are additional guarantees that the freedom to create which God intends all to have will be the lot of everyone. Your visualizations of a blue light around yourself, your matrix, and its manifestation will serve to focalize the desired protection. When Christ Jesus made the statement, "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword," it caused consternation to many who followed him as the Prince of Peace, and it has continued to do so to the present hour. Beloved ones, that declaration, together with that which follows, "I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and the foes shall be they of his own household," have in common the purpose of conveying a message of protection of each life stream. I'm just going to find the biblical reference for that one because it's very interesting. So this is book 7, or chapter 7. Studies in Alchemy, book 1. So that was from Luke 37. And "Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done" was from Genesis 1:3. So, "And a man's foe," I want to read that again because it's important. "Beloved ones, that declaration together with that which follows, 'I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's foes shall be they of his own household,' have in common the purpose of conveying a message of protection of life stream and of the family." That's me adding in "of the family." Oops. Sorry, low battery. I gotta get that linked up so it doesn't cut you out and you don't lose access to the reading. Has anyone read this before? Darn it. Okay. The good ones are worth doing more than once. So, let us see if that gives more chance for the battery to last. I love it. French vanilla. Brr. Okay. The Savior proclaimed to all humankind the need to protect the very God design which belongs to them. Therefore, if some should presume to tell others how to live, they would be setting at variance family and friends. And if a man choose consciously to seek, find, and follow his own God design, although that very pattern may not please father, mother, friends, or society, that man should accept it, albeit set him at variance with those who yet hold the world's concepts of fulfillment. In following Bethlehem's star, the inner lone star of the Christ, one shares Gethsemane, Calvary, Resurrection's morn, and Ascension's hill. Thus, no one can have true peace until the sword of divine discrimination enables him to discern reality for himself and then to protect the inherent gifts and graces God has sealed within him in order to make of each life stream a glorious faucet in the master plan of the creation. May I add, too, that Michael Seegers does say that the sword is the sacred word, which is very relevant to all of this work in alchemy as well. I do not allow that as an excuse for human stubbornness should arise from my preceding statement. Surely it should be realized that many well-meaning parents and friends do give sound advice, that many religions and educational leaders do likewise, and that much can be learned from listening to the wisdom of the learned and the well-informed. I am, however, interested in each individual's mastering for himself the process of self-discrimination, whereby he develops the qualities of leadership and the ability to weigh the advices of others, obediently looking to the God above to penetrate the density of human reason with the light of his benevolence, which I repeat is the dawn and the substance of pure reason itself. Greater logic hath no man than the incomparable wisdom of the Logos. There is here, nonetheless, a point of danger, a thin ice state of consciousness where foolish aloofness is sensitized within the student, and in this state he declares, I need only God, and he alone must tell me all I would know. Well, dear ones, when the king forbids the son to a feast, he employs servants to place the goods of his table before the son, who must then arise and partake of it for himself. So let all learn to recognize the true worth in others and in all things, but be not misled by the blindness of others. Now I come to a place where I am anxious to convey to you a great mystery in a manner whereby the very correctness of your apprehension will enable you to reap permanent benefits in your mind and affairs. It is this: the alchemist's understanding of consciousness is the supreme ingredient. Beloved ones, with God all things are possible. If you possess his consciousness, then it is now so for each of you. All things are, in fact, immediately possible to you in manifestation. If this is not your instantaneous experience, then you need more of his consciousness. So far, so good, you say, but how do I go about acquiring that nebulous commodity called consciousness? Beloved ones, what and where is your consciousness? The minute specks of physical matter or energy, atomic in nature, are composed of particles of light held within orbital paths, prescribed and imbued with intelligent action. This spiritual magnetism infused with creative intelligence, power, and love is a flux whose density permeates the entire sphere and realm of each atom, extending outward into molecular and cellular composition, and thence through the elemental phases of nature, manifesting on planetary scale. And when correctly understood, these particles shall be known to be whirling in infinity fantastical orbital paths through solar, galactic, and universal densities. Relative size has enabled mankind to feel that his consciousness is body-confined or cell-confined, as the case may be. This concept of the ghost change within the human machine is a total mistake. Although the flow of interacting forces may become more complex, still the concept of an expanding consciousness simultaneous with an expanding universe must be reckoned with if man will correctly master his affairs. Man is no more confined to his body than he is to an atom of substance within it or within his brain. Neither are the atoms of physical matter composing that body man confined to it and limited in expression by that body or matter-mind density. Neither are the atoms of physical matter composing that body confined to it and limited in expression by that body or matter-mind density. The power of reaching outward and becoming a part altogether conscious of a whole in a marvelously spiritual manner is the gift of God to all. No one loses any part of that which is already his own by doing so, and no one takes anything away from anyone else through this sharing of the glories of God. The real meaning of the passage of Scripture in which John the Revelator referred to the little book, which would be sweet in the mouth and bitter in the belly, relates to his digestion of the idea of himself as containing the universe and the universe containing him. The book of life spoken of in Revelation is the Lexicon of God, and the Lexicon of God embraces the entire cosmos. So we'll go find it again. That was 4 and 5. That was Revelations 10:9 and Revelations 22:19. Inasmuch as it spans all of the creation, let none take away another's portion or privilege to enjoy all of its cosmic truth, nor let anyone deprive himself of this, life's greatest privilege. To do so is to take away either one's own or another's portion. And surely then God, as law, shall confine the one so doing to the same sphere of limitation to which he has confined another. Let all in being their brother's keeper esteem the highest and best possibilities for everyone. Therefore expand and contract the consciousness to sense not only the necessary internal realm of being, but also the externally expanding universe. And you shall find your consciousness leaping into the arms of the eternal alchemist himself. Now it is not my intention to leave the many subjects included in this course without a spiritual and physical synopsis, and an adage of daily usefulness. Therefore the next lesson shall include the golden chord, which should perhaps be spelled chord with a CHORD, for it is intended to create a final harmonizing key in consciousness that will make this course of permanent and inestimable value to all. I am hopefully including such instruction as shall serve to frame the whole in a setting rare and lovely. But the whole herein referred to is your whole life. Master your consciousness by properly directing your attention and possess thereby the key to God's precious storehouse of eternal substance. Fondly I am, Saint Germain. All right, 44 minutes into this, 47 into the call, and the Crucible of Being is about 40 pages, which is probably definitely way too long to actually get through the whole thing. Oh, it's broken down into 3 parts. Perfect, so we'll read part 1 for sure. Chapter 9, The Crucible of Being. Please there the man, with soul so dead, who never to himself hath said, This is my own, my native universe. Part 1. If I could cite one area of application which the students need to work on more than any other, it is that of the expansion of the universal consciousness within the force field of the individual. The greatest need, something just passed by my window. The greatest need of mankind today, and I say this unequivocally, is the development and the nurturing of the sense of the universal as belonging completely to the individual. From thence is drawn the foregone conclusion that the individual must also be sensed as belonging to that universal cosmos so conceived. As the student of alchemy approaches the temple of being, of life, of oneness, he must, if he would correctly apprehend the meaning of existence and derive happiness therefrom, see himself as a diamond of light's perfection, set in a mounting or perfectual elegance, acknowledging his origin in those permanent realities which the interpretive mind and heart of being are able to apprehend and hold in the proper focus of prospective progress. Man shall once again renew his intelligibly guided drift toward sublime reality. There is no greater deterrent to progress than the isolationism that evolves out of the sense of separation from life, wherein the smallness of the ego, pitted against indeterminate odds, lurks in the shadows of uncertainty. The unforeseeable events of the future, by reason of their opacity, project little comfort into the longing heart which awaits some word from the creative mind of God, some foreknowledge of the adept, some foreknowledge of the depth of that love which God feels for each part of the vast whole of the cosmos in all of its immensity and greatness. From the least to the greatest minds of earth, all need the benefit of lasting attunement with the universal consciousness of God. Mankind, through various religious concepts, have imagined God to be a creature creator, simply because they themselves are creator creatures. Using the tremendous outgoing energy of being, men have diligently imagined and imaged forth the nature of God, while only the few have apprehended the truth that God is consciousness, and as consciousness he is life, intelligence, will, and love manifest in a rich variety of dimensions and attributes. Now I tell you, God is a benign impersonal personality, a personal impersonality, a personal personality, and an impersonal impersonality, comprising the manifest consciousness of being. He gives and gives of his creative self to the creatures he has made in the hope that they will apprehend his purposes and emulate his consciousness to the fullness with which he has endowed them. As they mature and grow throughout life, people imitate one another, consciously and unconsciously, mimicking the personalities that touch their lives. They dwell in such a sense of unreality that they persist in identifying themselves as vile sinners. They accept not only the accusations of the accuser of our brethren, whose machinations are exposed in the 12th chapter of the book of Revelation, but also the burden of mounting waves of mass condemnation, which, like a raging sea, threaten to drown the real image of the higher self in an ocean of emotion. The purpose of thought and feeling is to form the mold of fruitful and progressive experience, which in turn endows mankind with the highest aspects of his divine self. You see, blessed alchemists, your thoughts and feelings are the culmination lines that adjust and align your energies, focusing them through the lens of consciousness according to your free will for either constructive or destructive designs in the world of form. Mankind in the mainstream of their influence have misused the energies of their thoughts and feelings, and unaware of the consequences of their mental and emotional inconsistencies, irregularities, and incongruities, they have molded light's energies, descending into their world into asymmetrical forms, which by reason of their nature could never produce happiness for themselves or any other part of life. The idea of a temperamental, vengeful, or unjust God is abhorrent from the outset. The concept of an arbitrary deity who would show favoritism is likewise distressing. Hence, according to his awareness of the deity, man himself becomes the arbiter of his destiny, and according to his uses of energy, the harbinger of truth or error in his life. The stratification of human consciousness from the aboriginal types onto the erudite 20th century man, skilled in philosophy, science, religion, and the higher mechanics of living, persists in its full range to the present day in various parts of the world. Honest individuals will even recognize in themselves these progressive steps of consciousness, which, if progress is being made, are constantly in a state of flux. Now it is true that it may be more comfortable, at least temporarily, for mankind to vegetate neath the sun and the moon in an isolated reverie, remote from the challenges of life, without benefit of the sometimes violent but always disturbing alchemical heat which, as Christic fires, acts to purge mankind of his dross. But I am certain that the soul which desires to climb the hill of attainment to reach the summit peaks will neither find fault with nor reject the necessary chain of experiences that are intended to broaden the mind, sharpen the intellect, exalt the spirit, and test the mettle of a man. While on the subject of the gradations of consciousness, remember that each level represents a phase of the alchemy of transition from the human to the divine. A just sense of the equal opportunity of all to apprentice themselves to the master alchemist is a prerequisite to personal freedom. To recognize the potential of a mobile and malleable consciousness is to recognize the soaring of the spirit. To be willing to accept personal responsibility for changing unwanted conditions within the domain of the self is to accept the responsibility of being a son of God. Those who cater to their egos and allow the energy patterns, example vibrations, of personal jealousy to block the doorway to self-mastery as they court the attainment of another life stream will be hindered in their progress on the path until they have transmuted this propensity. Jealousy is in fact rooted in the doubt and the fear of Almighty God Himself is unable to bestow upon each one every day a necessary talent contributing to the fulfillment of His divine plan. Inasmuch as jealousy and competition between individual expressions of God are among the basic causes of all unhappiness upon earth, I would definitely underscore the student's need to put them to the flame. The threats to the alchemist's self-mastery posed by jealousy manifest in many subtle modes, so much so that many honest-hearted people are unaware of the fact that such tainted vibrations do from time to time play upon their feelings. Application made in prayer and supplication, or as invocations and affirmations called decrees, made in the name of God for the freeing of oneself for all conditions of struggle, from all conditions of struggle and strife will bear the fruit of an active yet peaceful progress. You see, false identification with family and friends, the acceptance of limitations through heredity and environment, attachment to persons and places, to one's race, religion, nationality, or ethnic group, must also be submitted to the flames of the refiner's fire for transmutation. Personal attitudes must be adjusted to impersonal laws, and thoughts and feeling patterns must be molded after more noble designs if the individual is to make true spiritual progress. Do not say that individuals should not be loyal to those whom they love and in whom they believe, but I do declare that man's first loyalty should be to his true self, his own God identity, and to his Christed being, and then to those of like mind. Above all, the purposes and uses of life must be rightly understood and practiced. To awaken each day to another round of pursuing vain pleasures and the questionable hope of mortal expectation, herein lies a state of flaccid misery, in which the soul is scarcely exercised. When the purposes of heaven are truly understood, man will welcome the dawn and receive each new day with joy. In this fullness of life, man can hardly fear death. As I wrote in my essay of death, under the name of Francis Bacon, it is as natural to die as to be born, and to a little infant, perhaps, the one is as painful as the other. That's That's Francis Bacon, Essays or Counsels, Civil and Moral, 1625. Oh, that would be a good. Interesting. Okay. And this is true. Oh, wait, that was number 2. Number 2. No, that was way further down. Okay. Through the centuries, men have taken great pride in the body. They have glorified it and deified it. Artists have painted it, sculptors have created beautiful statues exhibiting it, and in the end, it has fallen into dust and decay. All the while, this process of decay has been going on. The spirit of man has supposedly been creating houses of perfection, eternal in the heavens. That's 2 Corinthians 5:1. And this is true in part, for every good deed which man does while in the body is recorded to his credit in great concentric rings of light and electronic substance which comprise his causal body, the body of first cause, which is the dwelling place of the presence of the Most High God. As each individual man who is a manifestation of God has a causal body, so each individual has an I am presence pulsating as the sacred fire in the center of that body. And in the auric force field surrounding that presence are the markings of his achievements for good upon his planetary home. One law, then, would I instill in the hearts of the students of alchemy. God is absolutely just. The universe is absolutely just. All injustice arises either in man's misinterpretation and misunderstanding of the flow of events or in man's mishandling of justice. Those who have not apprehended life correctly, those who remain ignorant of the laws of divine as well as human justice, cannot be relied upon to preserve the flame of justice. As I have stated before, every student must be willing to throw off the shackles of the false teachers and their false teachings. Every student must determine to break the chains of error, even while he rejects the image of the world as a place where integrity is lacking and the suggestion that individuals are here to take advantage of one another. The well-known and often quoted entrepreneur P. T. Barnum said, "There's a sucker born every minute." Of course, people do not like to think of themselves. Of course, people do not like to think that they are being taken advantage of. Therefore, they often try to outdo the other fellow before he outdoes them. This attitude is responsible for a most unhealthy climate in both commerce and society. While it is true that the responsibility rests with the world's leaders in every field to set an example of integrity, nothing should prevent the world's followers from manifesting that integrity which their leaders ought to manifest, or from exalting virtue as an example before them. There is much in the world's thought about itself that is accurate, but its inaccuracies have come to be accepted by individuals without question. Such tacit acceptance makes for both a weak civilization and a weak individuality. Therefore, in strengthening the bonds of freedom throughout the world, a new man must emerge from the social milieu. A new Atlantean must step forth, clothed with the righteousness of the sun, a golden man for the golden age. This is the master alchemist. If this spiritual man, clothed with the power of the sun, clothed with the power of spiritual alchemy, clothed with the virtue that he already possesses, but of which he is far too often unaware, is to stand forth today, it must be because he has offered the body of his corrupt substances to be thrown into the crucible of the alchemical furnace. The alchemical furnace. The early Christian mystics and writers referred to this experience when they said that a man ought to die with Christ if he expected to live with him. 1 Corinthians 15:31. This death of the old man with his deeds. It's EPH 422 to 24 and COL 3910. This death of the old man with his deeds is confined to the crucible of the spiritual alchemical experience. Thus it is possible for all unwanted conditions in a man's life to be changed, that he may pass through a glorious transmutative epic culminating to in the putting on of the new man. I'm getting tired, so I'm messing up more. Free at last of the dross of the human experience, man stands forth in all of the shiny glory of the divine experience that is the wholeness of the resurrection. The agonies of Germain may be compared to the spiritual preparation that the individual alchemist must make before knowingly and consciously committing himself to the crucible of life in order that he may emerge in the true glory of his being. This is dying with Christ in the certain hope that he will live again. Beloved ones, bear in mind that those who do not do so willingly and knowingly will still pass through the change called death, even if they persist in following the ways that led to destruction. But this change, without the prior putting off of the old man, will not lead to the indestructible Christhood that God intends every son to manifest. It is a supreme demonstration of faith when a living soul, forsaking even self-love, offers himself as a loving sacrifice in order that Christ's victory be glorified through him. Such is a career son of God. In closing part 1, I advocate that the seeker may that this in closing part 1, I advocate that the seeker make any sacrifice necessary to the seeking out of the golden possibilities that beam through the midst of change and space as spiritual reality, the hope of every man upon earth. And that takes us beyond the hour mark. So we're going to put in a bookmark and say that we're going to come back to part 2 of the Crucible of Being in book 1 next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to once again be reading Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. This week is going to be on abundance, so definitely come out on Sunday. It's at 10:10 a.m. I'm going to also be featuring one of the songs from the Mad Hatter's Mystic Music Album 22 project that I am hosting weekly or bi-weekly summits for. So this Tuesday at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time, which is the time that we are doing these meetings, that is when we're going to be having a mental health and harmonizing humanity with music summit. So please do come out for that, 3:30 on Tuesday. And then next week, we're going to have the next Mad Hatter's Mystic Music Summit with the Album 22 project before the deadline for submissions for songs from conscious artists who want to create higher vibing tunes and be part of Album 22. The deadline for that is going to be on April 2nd. So very much looking forward to seeing more submissions. Generally, I play one of the songs from those submissions in the 10 minutes before the sacred service actually begins. And then in that service, I then read part of, or I read the chapter from that week from Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, a course on discovering and recovering your inner artist. So that's something that we do on Sundays, and I would love for you to be able to be part of that. The mental health and then the mystic music summits, those are Tuesdays at 3:30, and it just seems like if we can get ourselves organized, if we can get ourselves coming to things like these, and we actually start connecting at a deeper level, and we start inviting our friends, and we share the message, and we help people understand they're not alone, and that they are going to go through a phase of cognitive dissonance where they're going to be in a space with two competing ideas. And as the alchemists, we get to choose whether we are going to go with fear and what appears to be real, or whether we're going to create a new path and then be the wave that brings that into fruition together, which is what I propose that we do. So I am quite tired today. It has been a very emotionally taxing day, not from a tearful perspective, but just from a not quite sure how it's going to specifically go with the summit tonight. So I'm really excited to review that and then get that up for your viewing pleasure, and hope next week you will choose to join us. It is 8:08. That is the number of abundance. So I'm going to say good night and thank you again for tuning in. Have a great night and thank you. Toodaloo.